Hello everybody. So we are here for the first official vlog of the Bungo Stray Dogs Readathon, and I cannot wait. We are going to be starting with No Longer Human, and later this week we're going to be reading Moon Over the Mountain by Atsushi Nakajima. This is Osamu Dazai, one of my favorite BSD characters. Maybe not my favorite, but one of like the more interesting ones for sure, like one of the ones that I want to like analyze the most. So I will definitely be rambling a little bit. Right now I plan to update you guys at the end of every part and just like let you guys know what I think and what like I'm feeling, whether or not I like it or not, and then I'll be reading after that, as mentioned, The Moon Over the Mountain, and then I'll be talking about the influences of Bungo Stray Dogs in Bungo Stray Dogs. Like the characters, like how certain things in the book might have affected the characters, or like certain changes that they might have made to the characters and why. We're just going to be delving deep into this, and I cannot wait. I don't read a ton of classics, just so you guys know. I have been reading more. I've read Wuthering Heights, Frankenstein, and now this one within the past month. And I cannot wait to share this with you guys. I wanted to share with you guys a quote from No Longer Human, at least the introduction of it, because I rarely read the introductions of books, but in this case I did. And I'm just gonna read this to you because I think it describes very well why I'm doing this readathon. At least part of it, like when we're reading the Japanese authors, which about half of these are Japanese authors. There's like others who are international. In Japanese universities today, the Japanese literature department is invariably one of the smallest and least supported. The bright young men generally devote themselves to study of Western institutions or literature, and the academic journals are filled with learned articles on the symbolism of Le Conte de Lisle, or on the correspondence of James Knox Polk. The fact that these articles will never be read out loud, not even by specialists in Le Conte de Lisle or James Knox Polk, inevitably creates a sense of isolation and even loneliness among intellectuals. Some Japanese of late have been taking reference to themselves as the orphans of Asia, indicating and perhaps lamenting the fact that although Japan has become isolated from the rest of Asia, the Western nations do not accept her literature or learning as part of their own. The Japanese writers of today are cut off from Asian literature as completely as the U.S. is from Latin American literature by the conviction that there is nothing to learn. Their attitude may be mistaken, but I remember how shocked the Japanese novelist, a friend of mine, was to see his own name included in a list of Lebanese, Iraqi, Burmese, and miscellaneous other Asian writers who have been sponsored by an American foundation. He would undoubtedly have preferred to figure at the tail end of a list of Western writers, or world of writers in general, than to be closed with other such obscure exotics. We might like to reprimand the Japanese for the neglect of their own traditional culture, or to insist that Japanese writers should be proud of their associated with other Asians, but such advice comes too late. As the result of our respected and forcible instructions in the past, Western tastes are coming to dominate letters everywhere. The most we have reason to expect in the future are world variants of a single literature of the kind of which already exists nationally in Europe. And I just thought that that was very, like, well put, of like how underappreciated, I guess you would say, Japanese literature is, and like we don't talk about it enough. Like we talk about like a little bit of like Chinese works, like at least nonfiction, and we just don't talk about I don't like how entirely westernized the Eastern world is. I don't think it's supposed to be like that. I mean, like, I'm here for like spreading your beliefs and like your cultures and like sharing cultures, but at what cost? And I think it's important for people from the West and like it, and also from the East, to become more cultured in reading books by Eastern authors, if that makes sense. But my thoughts on A Longer Human so far, it is very good. I think it's giving 4-star energy. That's probably because like I'm not like, I've read like a lot of heavier books recently, and like a lot of classics. I need a break from classics, if I'm being honest. But I am this far into it, and this is the introduction. It was by Daniel Keene, and it talks a lot about like, I just like left the part where it talks about his childhood and about like how he always felt that like, that the character Yoso, how he always felt isolated and not like everyone else, so he felt like he had to pretend to be like funny and charming and put on a front in front of everybody else, which I think is really like, it's still true today as like it was in the 1940s. We all do that in a way, where we are one version of ourselves in front of one person, like our families, but then another version of ourselves in front of like our friends. And while those versions may be true, we like to sometimes emphasize one trait over another, or downgrade one trait under another. And then like obviously there are people and times where we are completely fake, which like sometimes those are like completely valid. So like if you are giving a public speech, you don't want to really get like up and personal. But this clip is long, and this video is gonna be a bit longer than my normal one, so I'll probably have to like start editing it actually, but not today because it's almost 12 and I need to go to bed because I have school day after tomorrow, so that's gonna be fun. And then tomorrow I'm gonna read I'm gonna read all of part 2. I think I am like annotating a little bit. I'm not gonna like obviously share my annotations, but I'm taking part in one of in the anti-brain rot reading challenge, where you have to read for 45 minutes each day, and you have to like read and annotate. So I'm gonna have to read this much. That's like over halfway, but I could do it because the print is large and the margins are large, like this. So, and like this is every page. And I honestly love that because it means less effort for me. I mean, I don't like, it's important to put in effort in things. I'm not saying that it's not important to put effort in things. I'm just saying I'm a bit tired of putting effort into my books, you know? Yeah. I need to buy a couple more romances because I have too many classics. But also, like, one of my like mental reading goals is to get my bookshelf to where, first off, I don't have to like double stack it, like to get my TBR shelf to that, and to where I don't have to like have books stacked on top of each other. I'm gonna just count to see how many books that would be. 14. That's not too bad. Definitely gonna be more. But I can do that. I can do that, definitely. Anyway, I'm gonna get up now and go and plug my phone in and then go to bed. I wanted to share this quote. People talk of social outcasts. The words apparently denote the miserable losers of the world, the vicious ones, but I feel as if I have been a social outcast from the moment I was born. If I ever met someone society designated an outcast, I invariably feel an affection for him, an emotion which carries me away in melting tenderness. This also has some significance still today. When I think back on it now, in those days there were Marxists of every variety. Some, like Horiki, called themselves such out of empty modernity. That is honestly true. I feel like a lot of people have opinions today because they are like new and like I don't want to say trending, but that's the best that I could think of it, and like don't actually hold those convictions, which is sad, but I still see a lot of that like every day, especially here where I live with religion, and honestly most countries with religion, which is basically every country. Anyway. 93% according to Storygraph. So far it's okay. It's honestly a bit boring. Like, I mean, I do expect like most classics to be slow, but this is still a bit more boring than I expected or wanted. There's like just like not much going on, just the guy describing his life, which, I mean, yeah, I understand, like, it's, life is hard, but still, I didn't, like, it talks a lot about like his alcoholism and like his experiences at school in part 2, and then his first attempted suicide. So I need to finish part 3 today. Everybody, so I finished No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. This was the first book for the Bungo Stray Dogs Readathon that I read. I gave it 3.5 stars because I really enjoyed it. I didn't love it. First off, this book deals a lot with alcoholism, and that's not a topic I love for the main character at least to be struggling with in books in general. And also the main character got like really annoying, but there are some really good quotes. Like I annotated a lot. I don't know if you can see. That's not even the most of my annotations. Hold on. With the margins of this book, it was really good for annotating. I didn't make as much use of those as I wanted to. So like this, and then I have like parts boxed in. Sometimes instead of underlining, I will put them in a box because or like in the little bracket thingies, which I will put up there. I'm actually giving myself room to put the things in the video, but like that you probably see. But this book did have a lot of really good quotes, but I didn't love this. As mentioned, I deal a lot with alcoholism. It was generally really depressing, and I just read another depressing book, and a depressing book before that. I read Wuthering Heights, and then Frankenstein, and then this. It didn't do a lot of good for me, and now I'm reading Song of Achilles, so that's fun. Depressing books. Anyway, I did enjoy this because I could really relate to, the parts of it I enjoyed is that I could really relate to a lot of, the main character's feelings. And I think part of what makes this a classic is that a lot of people still can see themselves in Yozo. I feel like this is the type of book where I would only recommend it to you if you want to feel a little less alone, even if it's still really depressing and really sad. There wasn't really any language in this. Sex, there was lots of mentions of it. The main character plays around a lot with girls, cheats on his wife, and other romantic relationships, and cheats a lot, and goes out drinking, and in the end he replaces the drinking for drugs. But it is also very depressing, and it just goes along with him not feeling entirely human, which is why the novel is called No Longer Human. So he's being put in a mental asylum. I had wept at that incredibly beautiful smile Horiki showed at me, and forgetting both prudence and resistance, I'd gotten into the car that took me here, and now I became a madman. Even if released, I would become a madman branded on the forehead with the word I would be forever branded on the forehead with the word madman, or perhaps reject, disqualified as a human being. I had now ceased utterly to be a human being, which is where we get the title, No Longer Human. And from what I understand, the direct translation from Japanese to English of the original Japanese title is disqualified as a human, but that doesn't really work as a title. But No Longer Human is a lot more intriguing. But tomorrow, hopefully, I'm going to read The Moon Over the Mountain. I probably won't have it on video because tomorrow school starts. Fun. So yeah, all in all, this has been a good experience. I could definitely see where the Bungo Stray Dogs character comes in, and I will talk about the relations between the book and the character soon. Probably in the next clip. So I did finish the book. I finished the short story. It was a lot shorter than I expected. I expected it to be 30 pages. It was 6. I don't know why I was putting it off. I could have read it at any time, but I really enjoyed it. I'm not gonna rate it or anything, and I honestly do wish it would have been a bit longer. I wish we would have gotten into some of the characters a bit more, and I understand the point that the author Atsushi Nakajima was trying to make, and I thought that it was a good story, but I don't really have any like other thoughts on it. If it were a full book, I'd probably give it like 3 stars maybe. It did like hold my attention. I could barely look away. But other than that, I don't really have any thoughts. So we're just gonna get into all of the impact that the books have on the BSD characters. So I do have my notes on my laptop, so I will be referring to that. So Dazai's no longer human. We're gonna start with that first. It is probably the most similar to the BSD characters, the BSD character, than most of the other books are going to be, because from what I understand, like the themes of the books that we'll be reading match like the ideals or motivations of some of the characters. So like for some of them, I'm not going to say really unless you've watched it, like some of them are motivated by money, some of them religion. Those are more themes in the author's books than anything else. So it emphasizes, like, it relates to BSD Dazai in how alienation and performative identity become core to his character, because in the novel, No Longer Human, Yozo survives by masking himself, like especially with humor and his charm and exaggerated behavior. We go into that a lot in the beginning, which I've already talked about, to hide his real feelings and his inability to feel genuinely human. BSD translates this into Dazai's flippant and comedic exterior. He jokes a lot, like he jokes a lot about committing suicide, and he talks and like he teases a lot of people. He doesn't really tease Atsushi, but we see it a lot with his relationship with Kunikita. And he is not serious really at all. We don't really get into that until season 2, into like more of his serious side. And it conceals his profound emotional detachment and discomfort with his existence. And the novel's fixation on self-destruction and nihilism also carries over strongly, because No Longer Human, it does talk a lot about suicide and suicidal tendencies and the belief that life is unbearable, because BSD's Dazai, as I think I mentioned already, turns this into his comedy. Like his repeated suicide attempts are often played for laughs, and while I do believe that the character in BSD is truly suicidal, I think that he more like, because he would have died at this point if like he was as serious about committing suicide, but I think he more wants to try to find the meaning of life in trying to get as close to death as possible. And the novel talks about how that the humor is not trivializing despair, but it's kind of his way of coping with it, which is also a lot of people's way of coping with their issues, like covering it up with humor, or like playing it up for laughs. Like I do that sometimes with my friends, which reinforces the idea that Dazai's fixation on death is not random per se, but it's rooted in his exhaustion with life. And another key influence is the novel's moral emptiness. The main character, Yozo, does not see himself as bad or evil per se, but he sees himself as incapable of moral participation in general. BSD Dazai reflects this mainly with his past, which I'm not going to spoil it, but he did commit a lot of violent crimes in the past, and it makes it clear that those crimes were committed more out of detachment than anything else. And then something happens where he realizes that even if he has not really a moral code, he should still be on the side that fights for good. And No Longer Human also shapes BSD's Dazai's relationship to salvation with others. This mirrors BSD Dazai's his relationship with the Armed Detective Agency, specifically with the character of Atsushi. And it plays with the idea that even someone who might not feel fully human can still protect humanity. And now we're going to talk about The Moon Over the Mountain and Atsushi Nakajima. So the short story, The Moon Over the Mountain, does directly inspire the BSD Atsushi, especially in the portrayal of identity. I'm really sorry if you can hear noises because those are our upstairs neighbors and they have little kids. So, and like his feelings of self-loathing, we get that pretty quickly within the anime. And in the original story, Li Zhang becomes a tiger because he can't reconcile his pride with insecurity. And his transformation is both literal and psychological. BSD does adapt this symbol almost exactly because in the beginning, and this might be, it's not really a spoiler because it happens at the end of the first episode, Atsushi's tiger ability manifests, at least in the first episode, when he loses control, and that represents the parts of him that he fears the most. And we do see him gaining control over the ability partially through Dazai's mentorship and Fukuzawa's mentorship also. And we see him start to accept this part of himself. Actually, I wanted to share a quote. I kind of forgot that I wanted to share this, but I posted it in the Discord from The Moon Over the Mountain. We are all of us trainers of wild beasts, it is said, and the beasts in question are our own inner selves. And that, I feel like, really relates to the character of Atsushi, because we do see sometimes in his mind his slow acceptance of his ability, even though his ability can and has been destructive. And then its central theme, that shame and fear can strip someone of their humanity. It really shapes Atsushi's character arc because Li Zhang believes that his failure makes him monstrous, and specifically his failure in becoming a poet at first, but then we see that he became so obsessed with being a famous poet that he ignored his family. Sorry, I'm just gonna turn this because, and I'm really sorry if this lighting is bad. I'm filming on my phone and I'm filming with the back camera, so I can't really see anything. And similarly, the BSD Atsushi internalizes the abuse and rejection that he experienced in the orphanage, and he convinces himself that he is worthless. And then the tiger becomes an expression of that belief that he is powerful and dangerous and unwanted. Which, now that I think about that, I just read Frankenstein, and we just watched the 2025 movie, and that's making me think of Frankenstein a little bit. But whereas The Moon Over the Mountain is tragic, and because it's a very short story, static, we don't see much growth from Li Zhang, BSD does introduce the possibility of growth because Li Zhang is doomed to remain divided between his human form and beast form, he cannot change it, whereas Atsushi is given what Li Zhang lacks, which is support, and he comes under the Armed Detective Agency's wing, basically, and then later on some of the other characters from other organizations. And he learns that his weakness and the possible harmful tendencies of his ability does not mean does not negate his humanity. When sometimes, at least in my experience, finding the right people can help heal that. But ultimately, the Moon Over the Mountain provides BSD with the foundation for Atsushi's struggle, the fear of becoming what you hate. But it does end a bit more hopefully with his story. He, through the help of other characters, he does grow, and even though throughout the series, he gets more trauma, for lack of better phrasing, he also, I don't know entirely how to put this, being in the Armed Detective Agency and having people who support him and for him to help support, we see how that's helpful. And it suggests that his journey suggests that acknowledging the tiger with oneself does not mean entirely surrendering to it, but it can also be the first step to self-acceptance. So that is the impact of Atsushi Nakajima's The Moon Over the Mountain and Osamu Dazai's No Longer Human. Also, I think in these videos, I'm just gonna also talk about what the abilities do, and maybe even include a couple clips of them. So with No Longer Human, Dazai is genuinely one of the most powerful abilities there, in the story. He can nullify any other person's ability with a single touch. Which means that special abilities don't work on him. And that kind of reflects the self-isolation. Because he's the most powerful, he will see himself as being not the most powerful, but one of the most powerful. He sees himself as being one of the most separate from his fellow ability users, and no ability can touch him. He is untouchable, but in being untouchable, he's lonely. And then Atsushi's ability, I'm not gonna go super in depth because we already talked about it, but basically he can turn into a tiger, and that is it. And now, drumroll please, it is time to announce the next two books. This is just a reminder, if any of you guys want to participate in just one single month, you guys are totally free to. There is also a Discord, which I will have in the description below, where we will share our thoughts about the different works that we will be reading, and we will also have weekly watch-alongs on Friday. There's no specific time that we will have it. It was originally going to be at 9 p.m. CET, Central European Time, but that might change. Hopefully not, but it's possible. But you guys are totally welcome to just join for 1 month or however long you want to. You guys don't even have to join in the Discord. Just if you do join for 1 month, comment down below. I want to see you guys enjoy, like, I want to see your guys' thoughts on the novels, even if you're just participating for one of the months or two, depending on the novel, because some of the books are pretty long, and so I've given them 2 months. I did have to squirm one of the longer, like 2 of the longer novels together, unfortunately, but that's not going to be until the end. I will probably renew this for a second year. That is if people are interested, and so that wouldn't happen until the end of the second year. But enough yapping, and we are going to get to the announcement of the next works. So, in February, we are going to read Rampo Edogawa's, or Edogawa Rampo, depending on the switcheroo thingy, The Black Lizard. And I will read to you guys a synopsis. It's a novella, and it's a mystery. Okay, I found I found the one that I want. A master criminal and a master detective are locked in a battle. Who will win? They call her the Dark Angel, queen of Tokyo's underworld. It's literally MME, so that's how I'm pronouncing it. Midroikawa is famed for her beauty, her jewels, and the tattoo of Black Lizard on her arm. Crime is so easy for her that she warns her victims in advance. When a wealthy jewel merchant receives a letter saying that his precious daughter Sane is about to be kidnapped, he entrusts the renowned detective Akachi Kogoro to protect her. But he may have met his deadliest adversary yet. Edogawa Rampo was the pseudonym of Taro Hirari, generally viewed as the greatest of all Japanese suspense and mystery authors. He was a prolific novelist and short story writer, much influenced by writers such as Conan Doyle, Chesterton, and Wells. His pseudonym is a Japanese transliteration of Edgar Allan Poe's name, and many of his works have actually been made into films. I did not know the later part. We probably, like in the second half of this, like in the second year, we probably will be watching a lot of the adaptations for the stuff that we read. I know that like some of these definitely do have adaptations, like I've seen them. And in fact, one of the books that we will be reading, the adaptation, is one of my favorite movies of all time. There's actually 2 versions of the adaptation. We might watch both. I don't know. I'm really sorry that I have updated you guys this late. It's 8:29 p.m. and I should probably get going because I've definitely been, I've been at this for like 20 minutes. So I love you guys. And if you guys want to see my reactions to The Black Lizard and my thoughts, sorry, I just realized I only talked about The Black Lizard. So if you guys want to see my reactions to The Black Lizard, please like, comment, and subscribe, and maybe share this video with a friend. That would be amazing. We will also be reading some of Doppo Kunikira's poetry. The poems that we will be reading are Meat and Potatoes, River Mist, and Autumn Sunset. If you guys do join the Discord, I will find links to those poems and put them in the Discord. A lot of the poetry you can find on poetryfoundation.com, which I really love Poetry Foundation. Anyway, sorry, I just got off track. February, which is next month, crazy to think about, we will be reading we'll be reading shorter stuff. The Black Lizard and Meat and Potatoes, River Mist, and Autumn Sunset. And I hope to see you guys in the next video.